Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Creations with Gardening by DX & Co. Today I actually wanted to get into it a little bit with some options as far as repotting. The reason I said that is like most of you globally around the world and are very much like the country of the US right now, you're quarantined, can't go anywhere to get new pots. So as most of you guys know from watching my previous videos, I'm trying to grow a lot of fruit trees this season. And with that, I want to transfer them into larger pots so they have time to grow out before I plant them directly into the ground. So we're kind of trying to stagger some of that. I'm going to show you some of those fruit trees that I'm growing today and show you some different potting options that you can choose and the different options that I'm using, since how I can't go anywhere to get new pots like I want to. So I'm going to take you along, show you how I'm going to do this, what you can use, and give you some ideas, and hopefully you guys can repurpose some things around your house for your gardens. So this here, guys, one of my red pear trees. You can see that right there on the label. I started this actually red pear tree at the beginning of March. Now ideally I want to get all of my trees into this size 6-inch vegetable pot. I got nice drainage holes on the bottom, as you can see, forming a nice circle around the outside, solid in the middle there. Now these are the ideal pots that I'd really like to get my trees in right now. Unfortunately, I can't go out and purchase these right now. So what I'm looking to do is find some things around the house that I can utilize. So some options that I came up with here. Look at this, a perfect pot. Now obviously not ideal right this second, but definitely something we can turn into a pot that we can use. And by the time I'm ready to go back out and get a different pot, I can always still recycle this later. So like I always say, reuse, recycle, guys. This is perfect. What you can do is wash something like this out with some nice warm soapy water. Make sure you rinse it nice and well, and it won't hurt your plants at all. So that's option one. Another option you guys may not think of, or may think of, a butter tub. A lot of you guys have a nice butter tub sitting around, empty butter tubs. Rinse it out, wash it. I run this right through the dishwasher, works great. A lot of times I'll use these type of things for like Tupperware, so I use it to take food to work with me, leftovers, things like that. But we're going to repurpose it for our garden today. So that's an option. Another option, styrofoam cups. Easy to poke holes in. Actually last year, these are actually left over from last year. I used them to get tomatoes and cucumber started in there. A lot of volume in there to get good root growth. So another great option, if you have these in your pantry or cupboard right now, you can utilize them for a project like this. In the meantime, another option here, yogurt cups. A lot smaller option, great for seed starters. Not one that I'm going to replant my fruit trees in right now. But definitely one that if you're looking for a viable option to get something started in, a great idea, a yogurt cup. And as you've seen on some of my other videos, also a great cup to utilize for making your own labels out of. So I think I'll probably save this one for making my own labels. This one was actually a little bit already utilized for a project last year. I was trying to do some aquaponics, just getting the roots to grow through this. So that project didn't work out as well as I wanted to. The water got too warm and killed the plant. So some leftover strawberry Bonnie ones that I'm going to utilize probably for my fruit trees. So just some leftovers to save. This is actually a great jug as well. That's a vinegar container. I'm going to rinse that out really nice and utilize that. Once I get this top cut off, a lot of people may not realize this too, this top half actually makes a great funnel. So if you're doing oil changes or just trying to put windshield washer fluid in your car, anything that you might utilize a funnel for around the house, people always forget that you can utilize things like this for other projects like that. So I actually save the tops of these because I actually have to pour bleach into some systems in my water softener, things like that. Because I live on a well, so when I'm siphoning the water softener and air conditioning, flushing that out, I like to have funnels handy. So always love to reuse things around the house like that. And then another thing that people may not realize, here's a giant, like almost 5-gallon bucket that you can utilize later on in life when these plants get a lot larger. So this is just cat litter. I have 2 cats, sadly, and we utilize a lot of cat litter. So that's another option. I'm not going to be using that today at all, but I wanted to show you that there are options if you're trying to do container gardening, things like that. Nice and expensive ways. If you got a neighbor who's got cats, ask them if you can have their old containers. They're probably just throwing them out anyways. So it's something that you can utilize and not let so much waste go to the landfills, guys. We can repurpose a lot of these things. Eventually they'll break down over time in the sun, but it's the contents of these are not likely to hurt or add any chemicals to your food. A lot of people out there will probably comment below about you should only use food grade plastics, things like that, guys. But if you're only purposing these for, you know, repotting to make the bigger pots later on, my fruits and vegetables are not going to be in all of these containers long enough for this to matter to me. But I will tell you that if you feel unsafe about those, to each their own, you know. What I would say is I drink apple juice out of this container and I'm perfectly healthy, so it's not going to hurt my plants. So guys, this is a great way to give back to the environment. And let me show you how we're going to get started with a couple of these to get planted. I'm going to show you what we're planting today, and I'll show you how I'm going to do this. So bear with me. Let me get my tools ready. So today I'm actually going to start with the apple juice container. Another great one. You can use the top half as a funnel if you'd like. I think I want this to actually be as tall as this label is how tall I want to put the soil level. So I'm actually going to take a razor knife and I'm going to slice right at the label line to keep me somewhat even, nice and even. You can even take a lighter to the top of the plastic, kind of melt it a little bit so you can get rid of some of that sharp edge. I'm not worried about that. I'm not going to do that today, but it's just another tip if you guys want to. But I'm actually going to start with drilling my holes in the bottom. Now you can poke holes with just about anything. You can poke it with a knife and then kind of bore it out with a pen if you don't have anything at home like a drill or anything like that. For the purpose of this, I'm going to be using a drill. I put a 1/4 inch bit in there. The reason I went so large with that is, I mean, look at the size of some of these drainage holes, guys. They're actually larger than a 1/4 inch, closer to a 1/2 inch. But I'm going to try to mimic that pattern where it's just around the outside and nothing in the middle, just like we saw in that 6-inch vegetable pot there. So I'm going to pause the video while I get this done because I don't want to drill in all your ears. Okay guys, so I'm going to see if you guys can see that on camera there. You can see I've got my holes. Like I said, I just kind of drilled around just the outside, left the inside the way it was. I'm just trying to kind of mimic that pattern. I don't want the holes to be so big that the soil falls out the bottom, but I do want that water drainage to be able to get out of there and some oxygen exchange to kind of be able to get in there, in and out as it's breathing through. So I'm going to go ahead and get this cut now, and I'll show you as far as that's afterwards. You can take the label off, you can leave it on there. I'm actually leaving the label on as a guide right now, but we'll take it off afterwards. Okay, there we have it. See, it's not perfect, but that's okay. I don't need it to be. I'm not looking for excellence here. I'm looking for something that's going to hold my plants and allow them to grow. So I'm going to go ahead and looks like this is glued on there, so I'm definitely not sliding it off. But obviously, like many things, got to peel it right off. And we've got ourselves a clear container. So let's get this filled up with some soil. So there we have it, guys. Nice soil base in here. I know it looks a little low right now. What I'm going to do is actually take my fruit trees here, set it in there. I'm going to backfill around it and get that going here. So let me show you what we're planting today. Some of you guys may remember at the beginning of March we did our seed pod starters, and if you haven't, I'll link that video down below. This actually happens to be a red pear seed that we started from seed right in these Jiffy pods. Look at that nice root system there. It's starting to brown a little bit, which worries me because it's probably been sitting in that soil or sitting in the water. I just recently watered these. Unfortunately, this actual mesh netting was holding this one down. I noticed it a little late and was able to peel back that mesh netting layer on top, and this thing popped right out. So that was incredible. So I went ahead and I would recommend, if you are using these, pay attention to that mesh netting on top, maybe peel it back a little bit, check to see if maybe your plants are struggling a little bit. And due to it, it really caused this really thick stalk here that hasn't really turned yet. This is only a couple of days old, believe it or not, because like I said, it was stuck under this mesh netting. You can see how that soil's really piled up there. So the first thing we want to do here is get that mesh netting off. And you can see it's actually wrapped around. It's hard to see in there. See if I can get this to focus a little on it, but it's actually wrapped around that stalk. So we got to do this very, very carefully to try not to ruin it. It is a thick stalk. There we go. I was able to break it. I was able to break it off of there. And so I'm getting this peeled off. Now the other trick to this, guys, is trying not to break that root system off that is at the bottom there. So try to go very slow when you're doing that. And a little bit does get stuck in there. That's okay. We've got nice healthy roots still in there. And I would assume we have a bit of a root ball inside here. I'm going to plant this whole thing right in to our soil. Now it's sticking up just above where I wanted it to, you can see. Now I'm going to go ahead and backfill that, and I'll show you what that looks like. Wow. All right, so we got that red pear in there. Most would say it's probably a little too early to transplant these from those pods. You could probably get a little bit more room out of those pods with a lot of plants, a lot of vegetables, maybe flowers that you're looking to get started. Personally, I really wanted to get them into their temporary pots. I really don't expect to have to change these out. Look at the amount of room for root depth there. We can really get a lot of growth out of this from just this amount of soil and the amount of root area that we'll have now with some great drainage holes. This might even be taller than I need it to be, but this will work great probably till the fall, really, before I need to possibly put it in the bigger pots. It might even work great through the winter, so we'll see. We'll check back on that progress. Last thing we need to do is make sure we get our label in there so we know what type of fruit tree this one ends up being. But as you'll remember also, I had planted another red pear seed and it's starting to sprout up as well. And actually it looks like there might have been 2 in 1 here. The second one's coming out. So I'm going to get this in the ground. We may end up, or in one of those pots, we may end up having to thin this out later. We'll see how it looks after a while. But I'm going to get this in one of those pots as well. And lastly, I really didn't have high hopes for this one, believe it or not, but it speaks to what Jiffy puts in these pods to start with, and the fact that we watered these, if you remember correctly to begin with a lot of nitrates from our fish tank. We actually took the water source for these pods to start with right out of the fish tank. Every time I have watered these pods, it's always been that nutritious water, nitrates directly from the fish tank water. I actually haven't watered this with regular water at all. And this one in particular is a lemon tree. I didn't peel this one back. I'll put the video in how do you germinate lemon seeds and almost guarantee, but I actually didn't do that at all with this one. I didn't peel it back. I actually planted this one just as a regular seed straight out of a lemon, just as kind of messing around and see what happens. And there you have it. Our lemon tree is starting to sprout. I'm really excited about this one. So I'm going to get this one transplanted as well so I can keep a close eye on it. And I'll show you a couple of the other fruit trees that we're starting right now that I won't be moving today, but I'll be moving soon. So a couple of other fruit trees that we started actually from seed in the germination video. What I recommend is checking out some of those videos on how to self-germinate seeds. Just search for how to guarantee my seeds will germinate. These 2 here are actually pink lady apples that we germinated just using the paper towel method, and we were able to transplant them straight into these pots here. This one here actually, same thing. We actually germinated these from seed in the paper towel method. It's an Anjou green pear tree that I'm trying out. I got another one here that hasn't quite sprouted yet. Then these two here were going to be apple trees, but I haven't decided quite yet. So you can see these are overall healthy. I've had these under the grow lights or in the greenhouse. I move them out, that kind of thing, just to get them kind of harden off. But I'm going to be transplanting these pretty soon. Taking these entire plugs, as what these generally are called, and transplanting that whole thing out when the timing's right. So I don't think we need to do that just yet today, but I'm going to give those some time to grow out a little bit more in there. But what I do want to get transplanted here is, if some of you may recall, that we actually recently germinated and planted our green Granny Smith apples. That's what these two are. I busted the leaves off of this one when I was trying to pull the seed shell off. Note to self, let nature take its course. You don't have to help it pull the seeds off. But there's still, I've had this under the grow light. It's really hard to see, but this is still growing and it's doing just fine. So I'm really excited about this one, and this one as well. Actually bloomed a little later than this one, but it's doing quite nice. So these are both green apple seeds. I put them in the same pot. I want to get them separated. So one actually will probably remain in this little 2-inch pot, and I'll probably get the other one separated out to a larger pot. Maybe even this little succulent pot that I had from one of the previous succulents. So might use something like that, or I might use something like one of these bonnies just to get it going for now. But the point of this video, guys, is really just to show you, you can do this too. You can do things from seed. Don't give up just because you can't get out to the store to get what you need right now, like many of us. Look for things around the house that you can utilize. This soil right here that I'm utilizing, guys, it's from my backyard. Everybody's going to tell you, you need fertilizer, you need composting. I have a great video on composting, and I recommend doing your research on that. I'm getting my compost started, and I really want to feed these things with nutrition. I have a fish tank, which actually allows me to feed my plants. Many of you may not have that source of water, and you might have to source fertilizers elsewhere. I believe in natural water sources like that. But I wanted to give you guys, just at the very least, some of you may have your soils already, your potting mix, whatever the case may be. But what you don't have is a place to transplant and pot. Don't be afraid to experiment with your gardens, guys. Right now, in a time of what they call a crisis, everybody's panicking and saying you need to grow more food and you need to grow food for your neighbors. Well, guess what? A lot of your neighbors are still probably thinking the same thing. My neighbor's starting a garden this year, who's a flower gardener, beautiful flower garden, starting a vegetable garden this year, because people are panicking. Don't overdo it, guys. Don't bite off more than you can chew, but don't be afraid to try new things. Plants can be very forgiving or they can be very unforgiving at the same time. It really depends on the plant. Do your homework, do your research before you start. But don't be afraid to use some household containers to get yourself going. You don't need to spend a lot of money to garden. A lot of people will talk about, oh, I gotta get raised beds built. I need to do all kinds of different things to till my garden, get this area cleared. You don't have to do a lot to garden, guys. Free pallet wood is a great source of building raised beds. Using sticks and leaves as a base, and then fill in the dirt from digging a hole in the backyard that maybe you plan to fill later. It's not the end of the world, guys. Or the best thing you can do to get started is container garden. This is a great way to get started. Start off with something simple. $8 for a pack of seed starters. You don't even have to go that expensive. That was for the large one. And then plant some seeds, or eat your apple and germinate your seeds fresh to get started. Take your green peppers that you just had for dinner the other night, save the seeds, plant them. You don't have to go crazy, guys. You can get started with something small. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please give it a like, subscribe if you're not subscribed for more content to come. I'm hoping to do some more DIY stuff, guys, and show you guys along the way. But one of the things that I would recommend is just try, and we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll come along this journey together. I'll show you where I fail too. I won't just show you the successes. I'll show you that I'm human and I fail just like everybody else. So I'd like if you guys want to leave some comments below what you guys are using for container gardens and what you guys are using in the meantime. I appreciate it. I'll check those out. So as always, guys, stay safe and enjoy your gardens.